Hello and welcome to Visiting Dugouts. I am Crystal O'Keefe. Today I have one of my great friends and all-time favorite podcast guests on to talk about the Tigers. Woohoo! Please feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, it's Rogelio Castillo here. I currently I work for Tigers ML Report. I co-founded with my good longtime friend Chris Brown, and I do some stuff for Fansided, but not as much anymore. So
Yeah, you're
when
not.
when it strikes the mood, or if they can pay me more,
It's true. We both used to be way busier. We've
yeah,
both scaled back a little bit. Probably best for us, especially considering the teams that we cover most
I,
often.
yeah. Well, I mean, in your case, really feel bad for you right now. This is one of those things where you look at stats and look at the schedule, you're like, holy, what is going on? And it, like, I mean, ironically enough, wearing a Charlotte Knights hat, well, in this case, the Hornets, but yeah, the Tigers are in a weird position right now where a lot of the fans are still frustrated because they are not going to, they have a good chance, they may have a chance to finish 500.
Hmm.
But that being said, they're not going in the postseason. A lot of fans are upset about that and they want progress. But if you look closely, there is signs of it. But as far as Scott Harris goes and the gang, it's a little weird because now there's this weird dynamic growing where some of they're now the youngest team in MLB, but a lot of the guys are Avila guys, and so there's now a growing. Well, this was Avila, and so it's been weird. But meanwhile, Grady Sizemore is the manager. Wow.
You know what? They've got two wins. Two, no, maybe three at the. I don't know. They've got a couple wins under him now. So when you kind of dole it out through Pedro's reign and Grady's reign, he's statistically, I think, a better manager at this point, which is really sad because, like I said, it's only been like 2 or 3 games they've won, but they've been competitive. I will give Grady Sizemore that. They have actually looked like a baseball team lately instead of like worse than what I would think a little league team would look like.
So, do
But
you think, in your opinion, that Pedro kind of didn't set the tone? Because I think they're like, for example, a lot of people don't think that AJ Hinch is like. We get a lot of comments on our podcast, which blows me away sometimes, that AJ Hinch is not a good manager, and you can only manage what you have. I mean,
mm-hmm.
like talent wise, but I was just always curious about Pedro. I think it's just a matter of, like, you look at the trade for Luis Robert to Baltimore, he's a completely different person. So you have to wonder then, how much did Pedro put into it?
Yeah, and I've noticed that too because all of the players that have kind of left, especially the pitching, but that's more of an Ethan Katz thing. Like Michael Kopech is dominating in LA right now. Obviously, we saw what happened with Dylan Cease. We saw what happened with Ronaldo Lopez. Like we've seen all of these pitchers just have this phenomenal season. Recently Eric Fetty too, who's now in St. Louis, and then yeah, you do see people like Eloy. You see people like Paul DeJong, who wasn't spectacular, but he at least would hit home runs on occasion. He's doing fine. Like they all seem to be doing fine post Chicago. And that's frustrating, very frustrating because you're like, well, what the hell was going on here that made this be like that made it just so bad for all the players and Luis Robert has looked better in the last couple of games, but when he's kind of like the franchise player for the White Sox and he's, just hitting ground balls or striking out looking, there's an issue at hand. Um, I do think Pedro, as much as I could not stand him anyway, I still believe that he was the scapegoat for Jerry to continue to be incompetent and firing Rick Hahn and Ken Williams, great, whatever, but you brought somebody in that's way worse. Firing Tony La Russa, who was not great, but at least took them into see some postseason under his second time around. And then bringing in someone that just does not have, because I mean, he was a bench coach for the Royals when the Royals were terrible. So it didn't spring any confidence. I didn't think anything was going to change. And I knew that him being fired still wouldn't change things. And I've said this before, like the rot is all the way at the top. You've got to remove that before anything gets better, because they're not seeking out actual talent. They're not making smart moves at trade deadlines or in the off season. Like they're just doing nothing right. Grady Sizemore might be the only thing in recent times that they were like, okay, well, it can't be worse, so we'll put him in. So, but I think Pedro didn't have any talent to start with, but was still also just very, very bad as a manager. Like I don't think there was any mutual respect in that clubhouse.
And I think strategy-wise, too, one of the things that I've noticed when the White Sox came to town last series was there was just a series of just kind of questionable decisions out of the bullpen. And whereas the Tigers right now, and this is an interesting dichotomy because you kind of wonder, what if, of course, if Hinch went to Chicago a few years ago, and I think he would have maybe pulled out whatever hair was remaining left. But it was just one of those things where you look at the White Sox, the Tigers right now have had a series of bullpen starts, but they have one now among the top ERAs over the last month or so since the All-Star break. And so to me, the one thing about I think in terms of ownership, Chris Ilitch is continuing to get this rep that he's not going to spend money. And the way, even if you go down the press box and you hear Scott Harris at these press conferences, the indication is the Tigers are not going to spend a lot of money this offseason either, despite the fact that Spencer Torkelson, which is something I'm sure you'll talk about here in a second, but I think the similarities are similar, where you have an owner who, I think with Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, but he seems like he's okay with them competing in close because it's drawing in fans. And the comment he made last year that got out, or 2 years ago rather, it was at winter meetings or something along those lines, where I don't know, some conference he was at, where he was saying, hey, look, if we play competitive, and I'm paraphrasing, that team, people are going to come out and play anyway, or they're going to come out and pay anyways. And so I think Chris Ilitch to a certain extent is like that, because they want to build things the most economical way possible. I mean, this is the dawn of the new era of some of these GMs where, and we talked about this the other night, and I don't know if you agree with this, Crystal, but I think they just want to get better by the margins versus get to the postseason, where Dave Dombrowski is like, screw it. I'll trade everybody, whatever I got to do. I'm going to spend money. And I think with the way the Tigers are handling the bullpen right now, perhaps it saves them on signing for starting pitching too.
Yeah. It's funny too. The other thing I've noticed is, and it seems to be almost like a kind of central, like I don't want to say Midwest because I'm kind of reaching out of the boundaries, but like you've got the Pirates, the Reds, the Cardinals, the White Sox, the Tigers, all of these owners are just at this point where like, oh, well, if they look okay during some games, then fans are going to come and it's still going to line my pockets. And I don't have to do anything. Like it's okay being stuck in this just, weird layer of hell. Like we're fine here. And there's no improvement ever made, but fans still show up. I mean, Chicago fans are so unbelievably loyal for both teams because the Cubs went 106 years without, a World Series title. The White Sox are, constantly being reminded of, oh, this is our window. This is our window. Oh, just kidding. We're rebuilding. And they're so loyal because they still show up to these games. And, the Cubs owners are just as terrible, but it's wild how loyal people can be to these billionaires that do not care about their happiness at all.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think there's something to be said about that. With the Tigers right now, is the Tigers have been able to stay competitive because of AJ Hinch, because Hinch has been able to be effective with being an effective manager. But you look at the situation, it's just kind of like as the Tigers headed to Chicago or to go to the South Side. They're in Chicagoland all week.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing that I think the similarities were, I think, with Chris Getz and to a certain extent Scott Harris is Getz. I don't know, from my perspective, at least. I mean, he apparently got fleeced in the deal, in the trades. There's to talk about that a little bit, but at least he was able to pull the trigger without a problem. Whereas Harris allegedly waited till the last minute and kept speeding deals until, yeah. But so far the return has been good on some of the prospects. But
Mm-hmm.
I I think what concerns me about the Tigers, I mean, in terms of Chicago, really being in Chicago, that's where the similarities are, where the GMs are kind of like, you can see the novice, the lack of experience there. But I think the difference is that does Gets have that long term plan in place that looks like they're going to be improving with their prospects, and that I don't have an answer for, but I don't know. I think I think the White Sox can play the Tigers stuff this weekend for whatever reason. I think that because based off what you're talking about, they're playing better. They beat San Francisco today, but I think there's a sense of pride with it. But for whatever reason, the Tigers, even against the Cubs, the offense is just it's really hit and miss, and so I think it's going to continue this week heading into the South Side.
Yeah, and I said this on the last podcast with Brittany about the Giants. I was like, the Giants obviously are a little bit better, at least they kind of hang in that 500 area, but they're also in a tough division. But it'll be interesting baseball because both teams just have the ability to flatline one day and then look like the Phillies another day. Like it's weird how they aren't great by any stretch of the imagination, but they're just it's like a fluky baseball at this point with these teams. So that'll be a weird series to watch. It could go anyway.
Well, I mean, you do have Tarek Skubal on Saturday, and that's where I think that's going to be. It could be potentially a bloodbath,
Mm-hmm.
or somehow the White Sox get him to get a couple walks going. I'm not 100% about that, but I'm looking forward to seeing Kyler Montero against this White Sox lineup. And there's a couple of stories too with the Tigers that I wanted to mention, that guys like Kyler Montero who have been, or Keir Montero, have some of the one of the underrated prospects who've come up and done a pretty good job out of the rotation. Recently, they decided to go all in and called up Chase Young and Trey Sweeney, who they picked up in the Dodgers trade, and they let go of Gino Urshela. I don't know why I can't say his name, but either way, the Tigers have gone a lot younger, and so they also brought up Spencer Torkelson, who he's 4 for 10. Actually, I'm sorry, he's 5 for 11 since he's come back, and he mentioned that he didn't really said he didn't really change too much in his mechanics, but there's been signs of it. And Hinch mentioned to us that essentially he doesn't want him to do too much, and I think that's the biggest problem because Tuomi got he got comped to a former White Sox player, Paul Konerko.
Mm-hmm.
It shows a natural ability, and he has been in Toledo for majority of the season, and so I don't know, it's people expected the 30 home runs, 300 batting average. He hit 30 home runs last year, but hit 210. So I think for White Sox fans to check out whether they're going to go with Spencer Torkelson, he might be just a singles and doubles hitter going forward. And I think that's going to be okay with him because I think the expectation, I think it was more of a mental thing for him down there. But you look at Riley Green, who's had a great year, all-star season, Tarek Skubal. There's a lot of things to be excited for. And you have two teams that in the minor league side of things, the Tigers who made the postseason. Some people doesn't matter, but to me, winning equals kind of some sort of mental advantage, if you will. So those are some of the positives for the Tigers. And so for once, I know you said this before about you were more excited about the Tigers roster than we were. And for once, I'm starting to understand why that is, because some of the young guys are starting to come through. It was just too bad that Justin Aaron Malloy got sent back down, but it was a casualty. But I'm sure he'll be back up in September. But another call up that came up, Wenzel Perez has been a fantastic outfielder. This is a guy who struggled in the infield in the minor leagues, but always get hit. So of course they moved the outfield, pretty good outfielder in the minors, and it continued in the major league. So there's a lot of really cool stories of the Tigers right now that get me really excited about. At least when, I mean, again, under sub 500, but they really surprised. I mean, when Brian Sammons, who the hell's Brian Sammons, goes out there and shoves for 4 or 5 innings, um, those days make it worthwhile watching the games.
Yeah. With all that, we broke down a lot of this early, but what else is new in Tigerland right now?
So the biggest thing right now has been I was mentioning like Jace Young, who got called, who was the 2022 Tigers draft pick, who just got called up. And so between him, Brant Hurler was another call up as well. The Tigers have pretty much decided to just I think they're using this as a tryout to see, because they, for the first time in a while, have a lot of second baseman prospects. They also have Hyu Lee, who's down in Double A, who's just short of being in the top 100 list. But it's Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal, who the Tigers drafted last season, who have been tearing up the minor leagues this year, and they've been given, and they're up in high A right now. Max Clark just won Tiger Player of the Month, minor league player of the month in July. As far as the major league club goes, it's just like I was mentioning, Torkelson coming back up, but the bullpen, like I said, just there's a little bit of, I guess, anger, I would say, with Casey Mize, because he's on the 68 IL. He's still pitching right now in Toledo rehab. Wants to be up with the rotation. Tiger said no, and they've been rolling this bullpen by committee thing ever since. And so he's scheduled to come back the end of the month. But I think between him and Spencer Torkelson, I think the Tigers are evaluating what they have with them, because either this is what it's going to frustrate me. I think the Tigers are going to go, oh, we see enough from Torkelson here to keep him, and we don't have to spend money on a free agent. Save money. And I think that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, I know that experience. It's not a fun one to go through. I mean, is there a reason, aside from reevaluating, do you think they're keeping Casey Mize down a little longer just out of precaution, or do you just think it's purely reevaluating?
I think it's about a precaution. And I think, but the way you can tell, when you in between the lines a little bit, you can tell that there's a little, Casey Mize is a little bit pissed, like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm ready to contribute. And so I think, because it's very similar to when Spencer Turnbull, actually a lot different, because Spencer Turnbull found he refused rehab assignments, and he found every way to get that eligibility so he could become a free agent faster. I don't think that's not going on with Casey Mize, but the way the front office has been about certain players and the way they talk about them, it's odd. But I think Mize, they're just being extra precautious with him, and he right now has been pitching 3 or 4 innings tops in the minor league. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him going forward. But yeah, I think they've kind of soured on him a little. I think the organization has soured on him a little bit, but that's one thing about the organization. They're very just stoic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's frustrating. Let's switch over gears and talk about the future, because I know Tigers are in 4th place, so maybe there's hope for next year. And then the trade deadline has also passed. It looks like their focus was mostly pitching and catching. So how are you feeling about what came from that trade deadline, and just kind of the future and your prospects in general when we head into the next season? Because wow, it's already almost the end of August.
Well, we just released our top 31 over at Tigers MO report, and so the trade deadline is reflective of that. I mean, they're on Lazaro, who they picked up from the Dodgers, as well as Trey Sweeney in the Jack Flaherty deal. Lazaro's already, it was Midwestern Player of the Week last week for hitting 455. Had a really good week in Lansing. Although we think he is going to be, he's a switching catcher with some speed, and however, I think there's been comps to, I guess, I don't want to say Victor Martinez, but that comes to mind. But he's a switching catcher that has a lot of pop to him. But I think his long term position is going to be first base because he still struggles with framing a little bit. Trey Sweeney, who the Tigers just called up, another left hitting, he's a left hitting shortstop. And the Tigers needed some depth in terms of on the upper levels for shortstops. But his swing has been, I mean, this is a guy who came to who the Yankees drafted and ended up being traded to the Dodgers. He got some pop to him. Swings a little long, but I think they're also the same thing the Tigers are valuing they have because with the whole Javier Báez, how long they can continue with that experiment. Yeah. It's brutal. Sweeney has also struggled a little bit at the plate, but I think the Tigers are kind of like it's been a rotation of people at shortstop, and I don't think they still have a long-term solution for it right now. I mean, McGonigal right now in the minor leagues is a second baseman at best. I mean, I think he could play shortstop at the next level, but the Tigers still also don't have a third baseman. Young is not a third baseman. Young doesn't have the range to do so. I mean, he's doing the best that he can. The long term, that's where the Tigers. I thought the Tigers were going to address that at the trade deadline, and they didn't. And as far as the bullpen arms they got from the Rangers in San Francisco, Eric Sylvia, who they got in the Marcana deal, was better than. I mean, he's been throwing 98, 99 down in Erie. Same thing with Billy Owens, who they got on the Andrew Chafin deal. But beyond that, it's just kind of like I guess depth purposes. And so Tiger fans were really frustrated because they thought they would get this massive haul for Flaherty, and they didn't. Of course, the Tarik Skubal rumors were about, and you knew that was going to happen because Baltimore was not going to give up half the farm for Tarik Skubal, despite, I mean, how good Skubal is. But the Tigers still really, to me, it's great they have some infield depth, but they are still, as far as like addressing things like, Jackson Jobe is going to be in Erie probably the rest of the year. Maybe might see a start in 2 in Toledo, but he's been throwing 100 pitches as of late, and he's the number one prospect in our system for a reason. He is very good. He's got good swing and miss stuff, but the trade deadline didn't really go as anticipated for Tiger fans, but I think it's going to be one of those that's going to be remembered because if Lazaro ends up being something, then it'll pan Scott Harrison a better light because, as you know, for every reason, people are like, "Oh well, according to MLB Pipeline, he's not ranked," and it's like, stop, enough of that.
We call them incels. Don't worry.
Ain't that the truth?
They're brutal. So I have to go back to Javy Báez for a second because I try not to pay a ton of attention to him until I have to. So I just wanted to look and see just what his season has been looking like. And I'm scrolling down, you Google his name and you know how they have like the question, like the kind of questions that pop up that a lot of people search for. The very first one that pops up is how many errors does Javier Báez have? And then there's one that says, is Javier Báez good at shortstop? And it says the 31-year-old worth -1 defensive runs saved at shortstop has been and continues to be the worst player in baseball as a result of his struggles on the offense. Woof.
Womp, womp, womp.
Oh, man. Well, he'll get booed for sure. He got a standing ovation, and the Cubs played a tribute video for him because I think that's probably his first time back at Wrigley since leaving the Cubs.
Since leaving, absolutely.
But he'll get booed mercifully.
I was gonna say, it was something that I'm sorry to mention his name, but Jason Benetti mentioned yesterday. Which that's gonna be awkward too. But anyways, Báez is a player who a lot of people in the media don't want him around either, and I think the Tigers are. I like to think the Tigers can get creative because right now, even like you mentioned, his defensive metrics. I mean, if you go by outs above average too, he's -1.
Yeah.
a lot of fans want him gone. And at the same time, I feel bad. I genuinely feel bad for him. But here's the thing: this is what you got a player who was striking out more and more per year. The signs were there. If you
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to it, I'm not saying that most fans don't, but if you watch enough baseball, you saw the holes in his swing. You saw that he couldn't hit velocity. I'm not sure what people expected for him to be the Javier Baez of 2015, 2016. It wasn't happening. And the Tigers are, Tiger fans are like, well, how can we need Corey Bellinger or like Marcus Simeon at the time, who was one of those free, because they weren't going to pay for him. They didn't
Yeah.
want to come here. And that's like where I think that fans, that's the thing that frustrates me about fans. It's like, you don't think they didn't think of that? You don't think that the Tigers didn't want, they got who they wanted and they put an offer out there for him. But Baez, honestly, Crystal, it's almost like, I hate to use this analogy, but like a wounded animal. You got to put him out of his misery.
Yeah, no, you do. And I was trying to think because I couldn't think of how old he was. And I hate to say like, oh, he's only 31, but also at the same time, that like it's up there in baseball age too. And he hasn't been good for quite some time. Like most of the time, his errors are just on social media accounts where people are just kind of making fun of him at this point. And I mean, I can't stand the guy, so I think it's hilarious personally. But yeah, you bring up a good point with media, and I don't think players want him. I've never heard great things about him. And yeah, and you mentioned Benetti, and there's no hard feelings. He's happier. He's making more money. He can probably eat on the broadcast again without being shamed. And people appreciate. I hope people appreciate his jokes.
So before we get to, let's get to Baez first. But Baez, one of the things about Baez is that it's too easy. After a while, it's like there's a challenge. He sucks. Okay, all right, enough. How many times are you gonna say it? It sucks. Sucks. All right, cool.
It's
So
like
bad
White
pitches.
Sox attendance jokes.
Yeah, like it becomes like it's too easy. It's like shooting a fish in a barrel. It's just like it's that. As far as Benetti goes, you'll be surprised, Crystal. One of the things I have noticed about Benetti is Tiger fans think he talks too much. Some Tiger fans don't like him. He talks too much, and I think he makes everybody in the booth better. Like Dan Petrie, for example. Dan Petrie's always been good. Don't get me wrong. But him and Benetti, it's like Stockton and Malone for that NBA, for old school NBA reference, because all he has to just pass it up to Petrie, and Petrie just slam dunks it every time. And I really enjoy that about Jason, is that Jason has the ability to of course you told us about the pop culture references and everything like that, but his ability to then, when he needs to call a game, he does.
Yeah, he's one of the best in the biz. He's the whole reason, and we were talking about this before we started recording, like he's the whole reason my son wants to get into broadcasting, sports broadcasting especially. And he's, been listening to Jason for all these years, and like I said, he seems happier. My mother-in-law, I love her. She got a MLB TV subscription for Mother's Day, so she could still watch Tigers games and listen to Jason, because
awesome.
He's, irreplaceable, and no bad blood to the new guy. He's just he had massive shoes to fill already, and he's kind of just
I've heard of some, like, I'm sorry, I feel like he tries way too hard.
He does.
And it's just one of those things where it's like, it's not even like, for as much as I hated Hawk Harrelson, because I couldn't stand him. I could not stand Hawk Harrelson, but he had his Hawkisms, if you will.
Yeah.
Can of corn, good guys, 3, whatever. But Mercy, at least he could call the game. This guy struggles with the basics. Like sometimes he goes like he's too focused on everything else and doesn't call the game. To me, a good broadcaster is calling what's going on in the game, instead of trying to go, well, Pedro was thinking about how he, like this and this and that. It's like, dude, no one cares. Just get back to the game.
and that's the other thing. He really like rides hard for Jerry and the front office. Like you can tell he wants to keep his job. And I get it. Like I wouldn't want to get fired my first season
Yeah, but
either.
first
But
of all, I mean, how brown your nose have to be? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
exactly. And it gets to the point like he's had all of these like weird beefs with the radio station. I don't
really?
know if yeah, I don't know. You guess you're not too privy of that, but yeah, they've made fun of him on the radio,
Oh,
and he's like puffed his chest back, and like it's humiliating, and he'll still like throw really petty jabs on the broadcast, and I'm like, come on, like be a grown up,
yeah.
please. You don't have to get along with Chicago AM radio. Nobody listens to it anyway. But come on, buddy. Like do better about this. But then he'll like go out and tailgate with the fans to try to like win them over. Like he just seems a little phony. Like he is a tryhard, and his calling is just not good. Like the whole South Side stand up, and there's there are videos of him after Luis Robert Jr. hit a home run or something, and he does this like growl thing because they call him La Pantera. That's his nickname,
Yeah.
and he'll do this like weird panther growl, and it's not good. I'll have to find. I had to send it to Janice the last time we went to a game together because she hadn't been watching the games, and I was like, "No, you need to hear this."
I
It's
must hear this immediately because it sounds like it's terrible. And it reminds me of Matt Shepard, the guy that Jason Benetti replaced a little bit, where Matt tried hard and Matt did everything he could to do his thing, but he was more to me. Matt Shepard is also the voice of University of Michigan football, or I'm sorry, University of Michigan basketball. And he's a solid basketball announcer.
mhm.
I also didn't have a problem with baseball, but apparently everybody like he would do this thing, put a crown on him. What the hell does that mean? Like like so. But some of the stuff I've heard when I tune it, so because of Twitter's stupid damn algorithms, I don't get. I used to be really into White Sox Twitter because White Sox Twitter has some most. It's diverse. Because as the diversity of White Sox Twitter to me is fantastic. The
Mhm.
tournament you guys have, I've always been envious of that because Tiger Twitter is either trolls or there's no really happy medium, and also it's male dominated, whereas
Yeah.
there's not a good female ratio, and it sucks sometimes because I rather have it. I don't care who you are, like you have a smart opinion, baseball opinion, great, but Tiger's Twitter sometimes has a tendency to be just trolling or just I don't know. I have a weird relationship. But White Sox Twitter, on the other hand, like there's a very good group of people that hang out and go to games. It's not like that. But anyway, um, I will when Twitter's not giving me the for you, the stupid
Mhm.
for you, and I go back and look at some of the White Sox Twitter stuff. All the clips are made. Some of those clips that they highlight them. I'm just like, man, is this guy for real? Like,
Yeah.
ooh.
I tried. I really tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, and then just the petty radio stuff and just
Is it with the
not
score? Is it with the score?
yeah.
Oh, I figured. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just I feel like he does not know enough about baseball. Sure, he's knowledgeable, but he's one of those he would do better at basketball. He would do better at something else. He seems more knowledgeable in that sport where you've got like perfectly capable people that were passed up for this job for this guy.
You know, it's ironic too. He played baseball at Dartmouth, and he
Yeah.
doesn't sound like he knows baseball. That's the weird thing to me.
Yeah, he's just a Vegas kid now, and it's just not pleasant. Um, we will take a quick break. I will stop talking shit about him in case he's listening. And yeah,
John, we love you. John, we love you. All jokes aside, we all love you, John.
you're fine as a person, okay? I promise. And then we'll get back to actually talking about this series some more. I'm gonna cough because my throat hurts.
I got but my allergies. I don't know about you right now, but all of this right now has been tingling and
Mhm.
sore. And I went outside earlier today because the neighbor was cutting the grass, and I went to go move my car, and I just got hit with as soon as the hair was like, oh, all this was
Mhm.
just it sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, I woke up today with like an earache, my sore throat, a headache, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
love fall, but I hate transitioning into a different
Yeah.
season because
The
it's always
fall's my favorite time of year, but yeah, the transition part, absolutely spot on.
so sick. All right. We are back. So let's, start with this pitching matchup. You seem to know who we've got. I looked at probable pitching earlier and it wasn't there, but I've got for the White Sox, Chris Flexen on Saturday. You mentioned that's probably going to be Spencer, and it will be a bloodbath. Chris Flexen is terrible. And then Kai Bush, who is just a baby, and Davis Martin, who is still kind of just a baby for the last game. So, as far as the Tigers go, what can we kind of look forward to for that rotation?
So Montero on Friday is a guy who just came in and struck out Soto and Aaron Judge. So right now he's on cloud 9 right now, and
Yeah.
Montero's been pitching really good as of late. Feeling more confident with his fastball and his slider. He's kind of he has a really good slider, but he's developing a change to go with that, and that's dangerous because his slider is very complimentary. But when he can get his fastball, the biggest problem with Montero though is sometimes he does 10 pitches in the middle and it gets hammered. So it's like there's starts where he lost 3 hits, but all of them in home runs. And so if he can avoid that, it's kind of the bandbox stadium that is guaranteed rate field, I think he'll be fine. And as far as Saturday goes, Eric Skubal versus Kai Bush, self-explanatory. I think I'm hoping that Eric Skubal wins Cy Young this year. He deserves it. He's just been that good.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday and Monday is TBA, but right now they've been using openers, so it could be Ty Holton, who's been the best pitcher. He's a 2-WAR pitcher right now. Ty Holton has not. It seems like he hasn't allowed a run or so in a month. Also, I've determined he looks like the Billy from Predator, the Native American guy. He looks like Crystal. Look it up. Look up Ty Holton and look up the actor's name, which is I believe I forgot the gentleman's name. The Predator actor who he's a Native American.
Oh my God, he does.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never looked at him that closely before.
It's I've got the actor's name is Billy Soul. He was who passed away a few years ago. Looks exactly like him. To me, just like there's certain images of when Ty Holton's pitching, they looks like Billy from Predator. And also he was in 24 hours or another 48 hours, or I'm sorry, 48 hours, which is some of the 80s movies. But anyway, there's a good chance that Ty Holton might pitch one of the games on Sunday or Monday, or Alex Faedo, or Brandon Hanfee. So the Tigers will be using various different openers. So that kind of throws off what the White Sox can do. But if Ty Holton goes, just know now you'll think of Billy from Predator.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to be able to see now. That's too funny. I mean, they do. They look just alike. That's wild.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm sure that'll be great. Yeah, I mean, let's see. I'm trying to say nice things. Jonathan Cannon has been great. His ERA is a bit high right now. Kai Bush has actually been pretty good too. Davis Martin. I mean, they've been good, but it's not face some serious aces good, which is unfortunate.
So it serves like I know Kai Bush came over in the Dodgers deal, correct?
Yeah.
So as far as lefties go, the Tigers have struggled. The Tigers have a lot of left-handed bats, so they'll be interesting to see how they do against Bush, because they'll normally sit Kerry Carpenter, or sometimes they'll sit Cole Keith, but Cole Keith's been getting in the lineup more against lefties. So the Tigers lineup could use more right-hand presence. So I think the biggest thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Bush's biggest issue is control, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's sorry, my throat is just hurting. Where was he going? Oh yeah, so we talked about how pitching is going to be great, obviously, for the Tigers, a lot better, even if they just have a random game. But who else would you consider probably the biggest threat for the White Sox right now?
against the White Sox, I really think that based off of what uh, Spencer Torkelson's doing in terms of hitting right to right field, right center, I think that's going to be a play a role in it. As far as I know Kerry Carpenter. I think it's Kerry Carpenter that has done really well in Chicago on the South Side, and so a lot of these players are brand new, so they haven't played in Chicago. So they haven't played in guaranteed rate field. So that will be, I think, to me, an advantage for Chicago to catch the Tigers and maybe even split this. I don't know. I don't think it's a guaranteed thing that the Tigers are going to win all 4 games in this series. I think the White Sox are going to split the series because based off the Tigers, some new faces in there. Jace Young's going to be obviously there. Dylan Dingler, who the Tigers called up about a month ago, catcher when they traded. I'm sorry, no, about 3 weeks ago when they traded. Wow, I'm trying to blank on who they traded now. Wow, all of a sudden I cannot think of his name now. The Please edit this out because I seem like wow. What am I? What am I
Yeah,
doing?
I'm drawing a blank too.
I can't think of the guy. Baseball Reference is right here, and I'm gonna pull it up right now, and I feel stupid because I know this guy's name is wow, Carson Kelly. Thank you. So Dylan Dingler got called up for Carson Kelly, and Dingler's off to a slow start. So I think for the Tigers, this is an opportunity. Sorry, for the White Sox, this is an opportunity to catch the Tigers. The Tigers are 4 games under 500 heading into tonight's game or into Wednesday's game against the Cubs, and so I think if based off how the White Sox been playing, especially at home too, correct? They've been
Yeah.
playing better at home, so
Mhm.
that I think this is going to be a series. It's going to be a little closer on paper, or it's going to be closer than what people think it's going to be.
Yeah, that's fair. That's pretty valid. Um, like I said, they've been doing better. They've at least been competitive uh, under Sizemore's reign. So, with that, what are the keys for the Tigers to actually take this series? Like, who really needs to be on their A game? Pun not intended necessarily.
I think Riley Green needs. I mean, Riley Green's been a little sluggish since he got off the IL, since the Little League World Series game on Sunday. So I think Riley Green is going to be how he plays. He's always played well at guaranteed rate field, so I think that's going to be a big key. I think another one is what they kind of production that they can get from Colt Keith too. Like Colt Keith's been having a really good second half, but the home runs have been a little lacking. So you would like to see some of that power come back a little bit. And third, really, in terms of the bullpen starts to continue on, that somebody else can kind of go in there and be a guy who can give them some innings. And so Montero going Friday, I love to see him go 6 innings. And if the Tigers can get 6 innings on Montero and Skubal, that sets up for the bullpen starts on Sunday and Monday. I think that'll bode well for Detroit because they'll allow guys like Tyler Holden to get better, get some more rest. Will Vest has been pitching. Will Vest has been pitching really good as of late too, but the long inning relief guys this is where the Tigers against a team like the White Sox, a team that's trying to avoid the 2003 Tigers, which was the worst records of all time. It'll be. I think that the bullpen will. I think the last key is going to be the bullpen. How they're going to perform against a team like the White Sox, who will do anything they can to avoid the record books at this point.
That's fair. So with that, I mean, you mentioned how it very well could just be a split series, how you don't fully expect the Tigers to take all 4 games, but do you have any other fears heading into this series?
I think my biggest fear is, as far as if Kenta Maeda, if how Kenta Maeda is going to pitch, because he's been pitching better as of late. He's been pitching on the bullpen for the first time in his career. But again, a team like he struggled against San Francisco a little bit, but I love to see him give the Tigers some solid innings on there. So that's a concern of mine too, because he's been better on the bullpen, but can he give them 5 strong innings against Chicago? I don't know. Also, another concern of mine too is again, I mentioned it earlier. I want Willie Green to just stay healthy.
Yeah.
No crazy plays, no nothing. Just hold them good. Just stay injury free. The Tigers have had so many injuries this year across the farm system too. Just get out of Chicago injury free, please. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
I mean, you're heading to a guaranteed rate field is I don't know why. It's a place to me that the Tigers, I don't know, like it's just, you know how when the White Sox are bad, the Tigers, I don't know why they can't finish them off. So
It's fair. I mean, they took one from the Yankees. I predicted that. They got swept by the Cubs. I said they will get swept by the Cubs. They're going to take one from the Yankees. And I had a feeling they would at least get one from the Giants. So, I mean, it feels like they're winning like a single game each series as long as they stay competitive.
I mean, the White Sox they're 1-5. The Tigers are 5-1 against the White Sox this season, outscored them 25-16.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like I said, like you look at the rest of the division, they have like that's the only team they're dominated against. But like I said, it just seems like the White Sox they'll get their due, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I can only hope because I think I have to cover one. Yeah, I cover Friday's game. Love that for me. And it's it's always a Chris Flexen start. It's always a Chris Flexen start. I think I'm just cursed or something. So that wraps up what I've got for you, obviously. Please, again, remind people where they can find you if for some crazy reason they aren't. And maybe you'll get back into like a White Sox Twitter algorithm.
I'd love to. You can find me on Twitter at RajCastBaseball. You can find all our work, Chris and I work at TigersMLReport.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tigers Minor League Report. And we also host another podcast, Motor City Metrics, which is all Tigers based, but more like we're going to be merging podcasts in a year just to save myself, because like you, I'm less busy, but it's also a good thing because, mental and physical health is much more important than baseball, at least in my opinion. So that being said, those are things where you can find me. And again, I love talking baseball, and this was fun, Crystal. Thank you again.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and we had Brian on for the first series. He was the second. We've played you a lot. He was on for the second series this season, and then our good friend Kevin from Bless You Boys will also be here to wrap up the season. So I clearly love my Tigers guys. We have a lot of fun. So yeah, again, go listen to them, go support everything they do, because you and Chris and Kevin, you're all great.
Oh, Brandon, you mean Brandon, right? Brandon.
Oh yeah, sorry. I don't know why I'm thinking Kevin. I know somebody. I know where I'm going with that now.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, it was like I didn't want to. I didn't want to be like. No. I didn't want to like go. It's Brandon.
I know somebody with the same last name. And
okay.
Kevin, and so I think that's just where my brain was going. No, Brandon. Brandon is wonderful too.
Yeah.
So yeah. Otherwise, just best of luck in the season, and thank you again for joining me.
Thank you again.
All right. Bye.